Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Uganda Political Platform here, a forum where we discuss issues that concern our mother nation, Uganda. Before me on the panel tonight, I'll introduce from far left, I have Moses Lutu Mukasa, a very staunch member of the Uganda community here. Moses, say hello to the viewers.
Good evening, viewers.
Just after Lutu, we have Mr. Tony Dizala. Tony Dizala is also a very serious Ugandan here who gets involved in issues concerning the community. Tony, say hello to the viewers.
Good evening, viewers.
And lastly, we have Mr. Robert Hiria. Robert is also involved in many of the concerns of the community, and we are happy to have him tonight. Say hello to the viewers.
Good evening, viewers.
Yeah. Now, viewers, tonight we have a very serious topic, a topic that has become a cancer in the society, something that has been discussed for long. We've had, and this is, I'm talking about corruption. So tonight we're going to talk about corruption in Uganda mainly, getting examples from other parts of the world. But our main question of discussion here is, has the current Ugandan government, has the movement government headed by His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, has it failed when we talk about corruption? So the members of the panel will be helping to break into this topic to see what exactly is happening back home in Uganda as far as corruption is concerned. So to start immediately, I'll give the microphone to Tony. Tony, give us an overview about when we talk about corruption. What's this? What is this mainly? I mean, what's happening? What's corruption in a general perspective?
Thank you very much, Mr. the moderator. When we talk about corruption, we talk about the challenges of good governance. All across the world, in every country, it's a challenge of governance. So it entails how government can monitor its programs and projects, and how governments can equally distribute resources in the country. So where there is a failure or a lack or a weakness in monitoring government programs and budgets and institutions, then there is corruption. So it's not only Uganda that is having a challenge with corruption. Across the world, every country, in America, in Australia, in India, in China, all African countries are faced with this problem of corruption. So this is an endemic problem to all countries in the world. But what brings a difference is how every country reacts to the issue of corruption. How is it handled? Does it have enough institutions in place? Does it have the goodwill to fight corruption? That makes a difference.
Very good. Thanks very much, Tony, for that overview of what corruption is. And I'll pick from your last statement there how you said how every country in the world tackles corruption. And being Ugandans, we are interested in Uganda. And I'll start with you, Robert. Do you think Uganda at present, the movement government, is tackling the issue of corruption well? If not, what is it not doing well?
Well, I would not say the government is handling the issue 100% as it's supposed to be. But on the other side, it has tried a little bit. When you look at why is corruption increasing in Uganda in particular, you start looking at institutions. Is the government having these institutions to fight corruption in Uganda? Are they in place? If they are in place, do they have the powers? This goes in line with the law. Are the laws in Uganda helping the institutions to fight corruption? When I ask such a question, I'll answer it myself and say,
yeah, true.
When you look at it, they are really weak. They are really weak. They are set up, but how to fight it up to the end, to run the whole thing up to the end, to pin somebody down, you find at a certain stage, they end up failing. You know, they end up failing because the institution bases on the laws. If the institution is strong, the law somewhere kicks them out.
Good. I'll pause you on that, and here I'll bring in my friend Moses. Moses, Robert is very positive that the way the Ugandan government is handling corruption is not 100%. And he has brought out a very big issue here, that the institutions put in place to handle corruption in Uganda are very weak. They do not have the powers. Those are his words. What's your view on that?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Moderator, for the evening. We should recall that the movement government started with a 10-point program from the struggle. One of the 10-point programs was corruption. We wanted to fight corruption to its logical end. But as we speak now, the other day I got records were showing that Uganda has the best laws down the Sahara that can fight and stamp out corruption. But there are challenges at the same time. There are some legal implications and challenges. The government has got the political will to fight corruption. That's why it has been fought, and it's where it is now. For me, I'm happy, as we speak now, that fighting corruption is on its track. We are on the track, and sooner or later, corruption will no longer be an issue in Uganda. Because what we are seeing now, we are seeing a very, very good record. When we took over power about 26 years ago, the people of Uganda were not aware that the money that is government money was their money. So there was a campaign to inform the population that whatever money that these officials take is your money. That was the struggle, and we did it. Bring accountability, showing records, how money comes in and how it goes out. Everything was put in place. The ombudsman, the IGG, was introduced by this government, simply to fight out corruption. The Public Accounts Committee of Parliament, the Auditor General, the Attorney General, the Director of CID, in the police, the permanent secretaries, all those institutions we have put in place simply to trap and fight corruption. And it has really worked. Today we can see ministers being netted. We can see all the big fishes being netted. And today you can't take money and you take it scot-free without being noticed by the population or by the law. What we are seeing now is a revolution towards stamping out corruption. And for me, I can assure people that sooner or later corruption will go or will be reduced. Corruption is like poverty. You can't stamp it out completely, but you have to reduce it. And for sure, one of the reasons why corruption is still in Uganda is democracy. You know, corruption and democracy are twins. It's very easy to fight corruption in a dictatorship setup. Yes, you remember during Idi Amin's time, they just told him that Moses Ali had taken some money, and he said take him to Queen's Tower and fell in school.
Presidential treatment.
Yes, no, we're not going to court and all that stuff. And in fact, that's what they are using in Rwanda. In Rwanda, it's a bit difficult for one to play around with government, but simply because they don't go through the legal framework so much like we are doing in Uganda. But I'm sure and confident that the trend of events that we are going on. For instance, a few weeks ago, I was seeing the 3 ministers, Sam Kutesa, Musugal Kuntana, and another one, who were being investigated and prosecuted by the IGG. So they went to court, to the Constitutional Court, to interpret whether the current IGG had the powers and the mandate to prosecute them, and they won that case. So that's the level of sophistication in the legal framework is also a hindrance to the fight against corruption. But for sure, the struggle is on. All
right, I'll stop you there just to bring in, I'll focus back to Tony. It's a good view. I mean, you've reminded us of the 10-point program where corruption was on top of agenda, which we really appreciate. And you've brought it out that Uganda has the best laws to fight corruption, by also giving us examples here that some, for example, ministers that have been put into light of being corrupt have come out to debate out their view. And you're saying that the government has a very strong political will to stamp out corruption. I don't know if members, Tony, would you agree with those views?
Yeah, I would agree with some of his views, but I would disagree with some of them. Before I go to that point, I would just want to throw more light on what corruption is. Because we don't want to limit ourselves to looking at money as the only corruption. Resources, how much money somebody has swindled or misappropriated. That is just bad.
Yeah.
one of the indicators of corruption.
Yeah.
Corruption is more entrenched and more wider than that.
Yeah.
For example, so many civil servants in Uganda wake up in the morning, go to the office, sign in, hang their coats on the chair, and go.
They don't. Yeah.
They don't turn at their time in the evening,
and so on. Yeah.
and then they go home and been working. Now, at the end of the month, this person is paid a salary. Is entitled to it.
That's corruption.
All right?
Mm.
But he is being paid for the work he has not done. This is. He said he is entitled to a salary, but that's part of corruption. So when we talk of the institutions in Uganda, institutions are there. Moses are there. Really told us all the institutions are there. Everybody knows the institution is there. But what is lacking is the courage.
By the institutions.
We don't have the courage from leaders.
Yeah.
To strongly fight corruption. Okay? The institutions are there, the best in Africa, the institutions are there, but the institutions are not operational. The little people that we are seeing who are being netted out, that's only maybe 15% of how much money and resources and time is being swindled from the Ugandan citizens. So when we are talking about corruption, I want us to widen the discussion and look at education institutions. Look at the primary school. Look at the churches. Most of the time we are talking about the churches. How do these churches which are coming up, are they accountable? How do we hold them accountable? When you look at the universities, for example, look at the lecturers or the owner of these universities. What education level or skills are they impacting to the students? Is it equivalent to the money that they are being paid? If you look at the research, look at the books, if you go to any of these universities, do we have enough books in the universities? And the students are paying a lot of money. But who is there to monitor this? We have this institution with the higher learning. Are they going to monitor to see the quality of education being given to the children, the students? No.
Yeah, I'll stop you there and I'll come. I'm going to bring in Robert here because those are very interesting issues. I mean, you've given us a very good picture of corruption. Let us not only look at swindling of money, let us not only look at the political figures in the society, but also come down to the grassroots. Is a primary school teacher who is being employed by the government to go and teach, is he doing his work or her work or is not? And that's a very good situation you have brought us. But that brings us back to Robert's issue. Because Robert categorically stated that the institutions that have been put in place in Uganda to fight corruption are weak. And Moses has disagreed with that. He said the institutions are there and they are strong and there is a strong will for them to stop corruption. Now, Robert, hearing what Tony has just said, that when we are tackling corruption, we don't only look at the top, but also from the grassroots. Do you have any, for example, examples you can base on to strongly support your view that the institutions in place are so weak to tackle corruption in Uganda?
I'll tell you that I'll agree with him partly that corruption is not only stealing money. But then, what I should tell you that when you talk about corruption in Uganda, what directly somebody understands into this is to do with money. You know, you can say if somebody does not perform his duty on his table, is paid at the end of the month, that's a form of corruption, yes. But the direct transformation of this is money. You know, it ends up in money. Well, one thing our people in Uganda should learn is patriotism. Patriotism, if we don't start with that, somebody to have a heart of his country. If I'm in charge of this, what exactly do I have to do? Do I have to fulfill this? For the next generation, what is happening in Uganda is when somebody is in charge of a department, it is for him. He looks at himself right there, not for the coming generation. I'm planning for the nation. Patriotism is part of this. And look, I'll give you an example. There are so many structures in Kampala. Put up, I mean, they make plans and they go through Kampala State Council for approval. There are plans including parkings in the basement. But what comes out? Somebody puts up a structure without the parking. And now, at the end of it, the country is fighting with a crowded city. They don't have where to park. But in the state council, there are people who are supposed to follow up this. you know, but the structures go on and go on and go on. They don't really follow up. The law in Uganda is there, but the institutions are also there. At the end of it, you know, the law beats them.
Exactly.
The 3 ministers you're talking about jumped out because of the law.
Yep.
You know, the IGG was an acting IGG. At the end of it, somebody somewhere must have advised them. If you go through here, he doesn't have a basis to prosecute you.
Yeah.
You know, and they jumped out. That's the weakness.
True.
That's the weakness.
Yeah. I'm seeing Tony, you wanted to jump in there.
Yeah, just want to jump in the issue of when we are talking about the issue of institution being in place and the cases, all of that. I want to pick on the issue of nationalism.
Yep.
Because at first I talked about courage.
True.
The law may be in place, but people are not courageous enough to stand up and say we cannot take this anymore.
Yep.
We have got the Whistleblower Act which has just been passed. People are now starting to come up and start express and show where there's corruption. Now, when you come to the issue of patriotism, NRM when it came in power, and I'm really very, very not happy with this, Mr.
Disappointed.
I'm disappointed. I'm not happy with it. I remember after senior 6, students were taken to Champwans,
Yep.
National Political School.
Yep.
This was a ground for modeling nationalists. People were told what is good for them, for the country, they can do for the country. That was good. Countries, some countries like Germany, most countries, after high school students are taken for 1 year to go and do public what? Service. And in that process, they come to love their country more than loving their family. Okay, now this is what is missing. I don't know what happened. I don't know even how many of the primary school pupils not singing the Uganda National Anthem. The 3 standards, whether they know. What has happened? Now, if we miss out on this, which means we are planting trees or houses on a shaky ground, people first feel me before us. Now, can we reverse this? Because this is the beginning of fighting corruption. People not think of how much you can get, but how much you can share, how much you can give.
Thanks, Tony. As I draw in Moses here, these are very interesting views. As you can see, members have really opened it wide. You've said there's a very strong will for the government to stamp this out, and you've given us right examples. But basing on what Robert and Tony are saying, there's a lot of decline in morals, not only for politicians, but definitely for all Ugandans. Because if someone can wake up supposed to do a work being paid and is not going to do, that's a decline in morals. We're also seeing a weakness in checks and balances, you know, and we are also seeing greed, which Robert is emphasizing that surely it's about money because people are greedy. There's a lot of greed in money. Now, again, coming back on the NRM government, because it's our area of analysis here, whether it has failed or not. Do you think these are some of the things that the government is taking for granted? I mean, is there anything being put in place to ensure that the morals are uplifted, to ensure that the checks and balances are strengthened, to ensure that greedy people are immediately put to task or to explain why they have swindled money, for example?
Thank you very much. When we refer to previous situations in Uganda, you remember when the Western world put pressure on Uganda that you must move from the no-party system of governance and open up the political space. During that time, we had to sit down and analyze the situation. You know, corruption partly is there, as Mr. Tony has just said, because of the change from the no-party system that was helping us develop our country so fast to return to multi-partyism without preparing the population. For instance, today, the biggest opposition political party in Uganda, FDC, is a composition of people who were punished from the mainstream NRM because of corruption. Almost all of them. Almost all of them were at one time punished because of corruption, and then they moved out of the system and they went and created their own political party because that's the order of the day. 2, during that time when we were supposed to go to Chankwanzi and register nationalism for our country, before going for further studies, they said that this is indoctrination. It is partly done for the movement.
The NRM.
And they fought it until the financer, the big financer said, unless you stop that one, we're not going to give you more funds. So these are the challenges. When you talk about government's will. Really, there have been political will. As we speak now, there is a division of the judiciary in Uganda. A court has been created just to cater for corruption alone.
Yep.
It has been headed by Justice Katusi, who has just retired. But Justice Katusi one day told us that corruption in Uganda now is very, very sophisticated because the people who are engaged in corruption are highly learned. They have all the means. They know the laws. For example, the three ministers, Nasasila, sorry, apart from Rukuntana and Kutesa, they are one of the best lawyers you have. They keep on looking for loopholes. But of course, there is a way forward for even in that case. Because if they say that the IGG has no mandate, let the other part of the institution take over from them. Let the DPP take over the case from them. We don't want that case to stop from there. We want it to continue so that finally people are brought to book. That's where we are heading. We can see the situation moving that direction because we can't twist things. We have to move in another manner. Since Ugandans now are aware, you remember those days when Jim Owezi was taken to court? The constituency rose up and said, no, when he steals government money, he brings to the villages. And we are proud of him. That was the implication of the people during that time. But now they realize that if someone takes their money, they are the losers by the end of the day. So really, we are moving ahead. In the army, for instance, we have different laws in the army. There was a lot of corruption in the army. Because, you know, this was a young army, which was started from zero. They had to put up structures to buy weapons and all that stuff. They kept on stealing government money until strict laws were put on them. And as we speak now, corruption has ceased down in the army. So we are seeing it, yes, it has come down, because in the army, they took it to court martial.
Yeah, immediately.
Yes, there was one officer in 4th Division in Guru, who was in charge of the black mambas, those armored cars. He used to steal fuel from those cars, because they used different type of fuel. So when he struck in northern Uganda, all the cars were grounded. They couldn't move because the fuel was already sold. That one was taken to firing squad because we use different type of laws. So as we speak, I'm really for one to analyze exactly what is going on. The government is doing its best. But the issue, as you have been saying, corruption within churches, in mosques, in villages, in families. People are stealing exams. Parents connive with teachers to steal exams. That's not government.
Members here want to come in now. Yes, Tony.
I want to keep in very quickly on the issue of the army. Because one of the reasons why Kone fought the war for all this time, around 20 years, was because of the corruption in the army. There were so many ghost soldiers in the army. There was no effective strength. A battalion is supposed to compose of how many men and effectively.
About 700, but there were two.
There were two. So that's the corruption which was there. Now, to go beyond that.
Let me just come in there just before you go on, because that's what exactly Moses is saying. That the government has tried to stamp this out. For example, you're talking about government ghost soldiers. And we have seen a very big step taken by the Ugandan government to cut out the ghost soldiers. So are you agreeing with him that the government is doing a lot to stamp this out?
When I'm talking about the army, let me just continue with this. Government is doing it, but there is lack of courage to expose what exactly is happening.
A lack of courage on whose side now?
On the soldiers and the army men who are there, or the commanders, to tell us what really is happening there. For example, recently Uganda government purchased fighter jets. But these fighter jets were second hand, and we are bought at a lot of money, a very expensive rate. Now, the question here is not to reduce ourselves to the corruption in Uganda, but we have to link it to what we call the international or the global cartels, where even if a Uganda wants to buy a craft, it goes through middlemen, and these middlemen are connected with very sophisticated system, whereby even the Ugandan, say the minister, the permanent secretary, cannot even know the system that is even buying a third or a second World War plane. He just brings it in. Do we have the necessary systems to cross-check that even the procurement, international procurement, international procurement, is it coming to the standard, is it worth our money? Now, that brings in all the other international issues that are coming in, like the construction of the dams. How much money has the Ugandan paid for these dams? We make a procurement, maybe 100 megawatt dam. At the end of it all, because of the corruption within the system, we come up with a list the road system. You contract to like the northern bypass. Initially it was supposed to be a very wide road, but now it became what? Now that's the problem, that the laws are there, but we lack the courage within the system, within the government.
Because Mr. Tone, one of the reasons that we have to analyze
it's
properly. For example, when you talk of the northern bypass, it was strictly funded by the European Union. Government's input was to compensate for the peasants who were around the area. But so they were the one to design the program and to make sure that it's implemented up to its end. When you talk of purchasing weapons for the army, armories for those smaller countries must be concealed. Of course, you can't come in the open. There are challenges with agri. There are challenges. We can't buy a brand new fighter plane. We can't buy it. We can't manage it. But at least when we get two second hand, yes, at a reasonable price, because we have to go through middlemen, because we don't want to expose our there are corruptions there. But the loopholes are being closed from time to time.
No, I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
The army men of today are landing men. They know the law. Because those people who engage in corruption, they first look at the law and they look at the loopholes. We continue filling the loopholes. That's why I'm saying that by the end of the day, we are moving on, we're on track. Actually, for everybody to encourage us to continue, we must appreciate that.
That's okay, but I'm talking about international, we are talking about contractors.
Yes.
The big multi-millionaire.
There is now the PPDA.
Contraction we are
That's
having.
why we brought in the PPDA.
But
because before that, people could just go, the ministries could independently go. You remember when Besigye was the chief of logistics and engineering, he went to Belarus, yes. He bought warplanes with just one wing. You remember? He did that because there was no
under the NRM
yes, under the NRM government.
But let me come in here, members. We are a little bit. We have to open up this a little bit. Robert, there was something itching that going on.
Something is really itching. Members here have mentioned about the army, the ghost soldiers. I can recall very well when the late, who was that? The one who died. He was the army commander. Kazini. That was the time of ghost soldiers. There was a very big action from the government in terms of reacting to this. That was one side of the government fighting within the army. Now, the question here is, has the movement government failed to fight corruption? You are trying to say, no, it has put a system in place, institutions in place to fight this. We are looking at the three ministers we are mentioning here in the discussion, the names, you know. These people were floated as people who got involved in the misappropriation of money.
14 billion
in Chogam. Now these are movement people, and if as you grow up in a family or as a kid, you look at people and you admire and say, when I grow up I want to be like so and so. These are people who are supposed to be mentor. The mentors of the small, the mentors, yes, of the generation, the young generation. But if they are behaving in such a way, they are not giving a good picture to the coming generation. But I'll tell you that right now.
Do you know the way they are being, because the charge against them is that they caused financial loss to the government. They gave orders for the Chogam committee to make repairs on hotels,
Speak Resort
and all that, but they didn't steal the money themselves. They made financial losses to the government.
You see, they make orders. They make orders, yes, as you are saying, but they are behind the deals. You know, those orders, the money is ending up in their banks.
Let me come in here. Let me come in here, gentlemen. And we're running out of time. We really have to focus this now. There are examples that have really showed that the government is doing something to stamp this out. And we are looking, for example, this is a Daily Monitor release, 12th of October 2011, talking about Uganda ministers Kutesa, Nasasira and Bukuntana. There's a quote here that I can read to you loud and clear, that the IGG says the trio, while performing their duties, did in abuse of authority, he regularly convened a consultative cabinet meeting and decided that the government would fully fund the construction cost of the driveways, parking areas, marina at Speak Resort, and so on. So there was a loss of about 14 billion unaccounted for money. Now, and there's so many. I mean, we also bring up the picture of the past Vice President Bukenya. Now, to me, the question is, has Uganda failed? But as Moses has told us, we are seeing these ministers, these political figures, being put to accountability. They are being put to limelight. Some of them have ended up in prison. Now, my question would be, one, is that punishment enough to stop, like Robert is calling them their mentors, to stop the act? Is that punishment enough to stop corruption?
Yeah.
Or it is something to just say, okay, for example, there has been mention of Kutesa being in line with the big man's family, and so nothing much can be done to him. But is the government punishing these people big enough to stop others from doing it?
Yeah, as you speak
Tony had something.
Yeah, what I want to react to that is not to say yes or no, because once we talk about punishment, corruption will always be there, and it's everywhere in every country.
True.
Laws are put in place, but laws alone are not enough. These laws must be seen to be working, and that's what I think, the courage to make sure that the law takes place. Now, if you leave that apart, or in connection with that, I want us to look at the issue of corruption in another perspective. Let me introduce this.
Yep.
The issue of multinational companies coming in Uganda, disguising they are coming to invest in Uganda when they are not investing. They are using the law, the Uganda law which is there, which gives them what? Tax relief.
5 years.
5 years, which gives them
Tax relief.
to disguise to come in Uganda and say they are investing. But when you look what they are doing, you see Asians, Indians, they are coming in, they are selling pancakes, and they are investors.
Yeah.
Okay?
Now that's my question.
Now,
yeah.
Now I'm coming. So I want to connect to that like the mobile telephone companies. And this is a very important issue of how much capital that the country is losing. You find that if you look at MTN, how much tax does it pay? It pays a lot of tax. But how much money does it? What about the dividends? What about what happens after they have paid the dividends? All this money is taken out of the country. Now, if this money was managed by Uganda Telecommunication Company, this money would be reinvested in Uganda to develop the infrastructure. Now, this is the corruption at a higher rate, where people are taking advantages of our laws in order to what? To siphon, to exploit the country. Now, what we need here, we need a very sensitive political system which will guide against such international market companies to come in. Now we have got oil, for example.
Yep.
Are we drawing enough laws that will protect the interests of Uganda? The laws can be there. You can sign up of these laws. You can sign these contracts, but in the long run, the politician will tell you, according to this law, I signed and it's right. But are these laws sufficient enough to protect the interest?
That takes you back to patriotism.
Patriotism coming in, but it seems to be, getting even more than patriotism. To me, Tony, you seem to think that there is a loophole in the government. There is a loophole.
Yeah.
But listen, because I've got your words very clear. You say the laws are there, but they are not very effective. Multinational companies are coming in and they're doing a lot of shoddy business. Now, what is the government role in this? Is the government failing to control these multinational organizations and investors? Is there a loophole that these investors are taking advantage of in the system?
Do we have people who are sensitive enough, who are knowledgeable enough to know how the law, international law plays are about?
Good. Back to NRM movement. Now, do we have people intelligent enough? Mr. Moses, I come back to you. Do we have people intelligent enough to know?
You know what? Every year, annually, the Uganda Investment Authority gives records of the investment in the country, the amount of money that has come, the nature of businesses, and of course there's some loophole, there's some little business that goes by because of the criminality, international criminality. Some people come, these guys are investors, you can't know them from the onset, because we are a country, we have the free mixed economy in the first place. We allow everybody to come in our country because we keep on calling them to come. That's one way of employing our people. So when they come, we keep on monitoring them. there are some successful business that have come to Uganda.
Yep.
Uganda has achieved a lot of money through this. We always get figures from the Uganda Investment Authority, and they are positive. Actually, they are positive. That's what's going on.
Yep.
You know, because we can't wash away challenges. We must have challenges at the beginning. We can't clean everything unless we are on the move. As we move, that's when we can see that this is a loophole. We have to fill this. That's why we have a parliament which keeps on making amendments within the laws. And I think we are moving on steadily. I think we are moving on well.
The biggest problem here is, yes, you are moving in the right direction, as you are saying. But what challenges you here is that when a law is put up, an institution is put up, the person heading this institution will be, is number one to be corrupt, to swindle money.
But the institution
itself,
independent of the government.
Yeah. What
the government has been doing all along is to get any suspect and take to the judiciary for them to give the punishment.
That's why the question is really coming in here. Are these laws good enough to persuade this issue to the end?
What would you
to
say?
criminalize somebody to the end?
Let me give you an example.
Are there measures to recover?
No. Let me, Robert. That's Moses is throwing the challenge to you. What would you say about the laws?
I'll say very clearly that you first of all asked the question: do we have people in Uganda
knowledgeable enough?
Those are knowledgeable enough to look into this if they are signing such big contracts on behalf of behalf of the country.
Yeah.
Do they really internalize this and they say this is a bad deal, this is a good deal? I would answer no. They are not there.
Tony, what's your view on that? Because you also brought out that question that we need people who are specialized. One thing I know, and Moses will agree with me, is that I think the Ugandan government has in the past tried to employ expatriates into things like the investment authority and so on.
Yeah.
So, do you think we are lacking people who are good enough to tell which is a good deal, which is a bad deal, and also to sieve out those people who have shoddy intentions?
We may have good people, but as we got the word nationalism, are they looking for their cut in the deal?
Exactly.
That they close one eye and let the deal go through? That's one way. Another thing is, if you look at the law, in the parliament we have, Lucham's last year parliament, or sometime back, was thrown out of the parliament because he failed to account for, to make tax return. To declare.
Yeah.
Now, my question is, why is it selective? Why it should be only a few members? Why can't it be across the board? That all Ugandans must declare their incomes. No, this is what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. In Australia here, at the end of the year, financial year, you must have a tax return.
Yep.
You declare your income.
Why is the case with not a tax return?
No. Let me make my point. My point is, all of the businessmen in Uganda are putting up constructions, building. Well, good. That's very good enough. Can they account for where they got this money?
That's the private people. But
even private people, individuals must be
Mr.
accountable.
Chairman, I wish to put this clear.
Yes, Moses, you have the floor.
During the struggle to fight corruption in Uganda, laws were made that any public figure, any government official must declare his or her wealth before the IGG at every end of 2 years. You must show where you got the wealth from, but this law has not yet targeted the public people.
And that's selective, that's my question, that we should be embracing.
When we call it selective at this time, then that's another issue. If we want all people in Uganda to declare their wealth, that would be another issue.
That would be another
but today, they are talking about the relatives, the spouse, the children, and all close relatives of any government official, from the LC3 up to the head of state. So that's where the challenge was netted. But as we speak, this has been declared their wealth to the IGG. We are doing it after end of 2 years. The question here now is why we have done everything that we can. We keep on bringing new laws, filling the gaps. We are going ahead with that. That's why, for me, I said from the onset that I'm happy the struggle is on. The struggle is on. Whatever the idea you are bringing, if that one will also help us to fight corruption, to bring everybody in Uganda above 18 years to declare, we shall do that because we are on the journey. towards...
Now, I'll come in here just before Tony comes in, because we're now trying to summarize it a bit. But one thing you just mentioned, Tony, is that we have people who are in offices of responsibility in Uganda, who are in charge, for example, of giving out deals or something like that. Signing, yeah. And you've categorically mentioned it, which is also to our common knowledge. It's true that these people, they want a specific percentage before a deal can be signed or something like that. And that is typical corruption.
No. Let me tell you, international contracts, there is a provision that 10% can be allowed to take it as a what? As a tip? As a tip. Yeah, that's allowed. But in
Uganda's case, it's not 10%.
No. It's not allowed in Uganda, yeah. And even if you take 10%, you have to declare it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not being done in Uganda. Now, my point here, and I'm coming back to, maybe I can come to Robert. Robert, we are seeing this not only in big investments, but also in every sector of society. My point here, why are people up for tips? We are calling them tips because we know what we aim. Before I do something for you, you have to give me something. Before I get your child into my school and I'm the headmaster or vice or deputy, you have to give me some money so that I give you a place. I mean, do you think poverty in this section? Do you think poverty has played a very big role into?
I'll answer that straight away, and I'll tell you. I'll go back to patriotism still. If this thing does not really go back to schools, and it really comes from there. The children should love their country. What do I do for my country? And secondly, there's greed for money. Somebody cannot be satisfied with what he has. You would say poverty. To some extent, poverty leads to this.
Exactly.
You know, poor salaries.
Low salaries.
But again, you will find that people with money are the most people taking the money. You know, that's not poverty. That's greed. What I have, is it enough for me? Because when you look at these things, you are born, you grow up, and you die. What extent do you want to have them, and what is it for? You know, if you ask yourself, I have got this money, why should I again enter this deal? And instead of being as a nationalistic to finish this for the country, you still want tips. But where does the money take you? You know, reality.
Now that's a very big point you've left with us, the point of patriotism. It's a very big one, and I don't know if members will have a quick reaction on that. Yeah. But look, patriotism, you have to be there for your country. You have to do something for the love of your country. But are we going to see patriotism when people cannot send their children to school because they're poor? I mean, if someone is going to get a deal that is going to give him some money from an investor that will be able to send his children to school, to buy things in his house, to invest and so on, are we going to see such a person not take that tip, as we are calling it, just in the name of patriotism?
This is what I'm saying. If somebody is patriotic,
he will not.
If somebody is patriotic, he will not.
Do we have such people? Do we have such people in Uganda?
He will not.
Do we have
I remember some time back when I was crossing the border in Malaba. There used to be a Kenyan man that was a patriotic man. He was principled to his, you know, whatever you would do. No. So, if somebody is in charge of signing a contract and you don't ask yourself, this contract is to help my country for the period, I mean, for the future and the children to come, my grandchildren, and you think about yourself today, you know, how many houses you want to have, where are they going to take you? After when you die, you are just given a small portion where to be buried. If somebody thinks about that, then in reality, you will not be misusing.
Tony, is such a situation a reality in Uganda?
I will not answer it directly. What I want to look at is that patriotism is not something that you are born with.
Exactly.
You come to learn it. So there must be a good environment that will allow people to do that.
And reason, yeah.
And greed, everyone is greed. Even if you and anybody is given exposed to have power, exposed to a lot of financial resources in his area, he could also be corrupted. He could also corrupt. So, if there are laws that can guide that person, can protect, can prevent that person from doing that, this is what we have in other countries that are developed. That the laws are there, people are greedy, but because of the fear of the law, that the law will come and sting, those people pull back, even if they have the access to these resources. Now that's one other side. Now when you talk about patriotism, I want to look at the education system we are having in the world today, or in Uganda for example.
In Uganda in particular.
The education system we are having is an education that trains people to fit within the market. Okay?
Yeah.
So you are trained to be a tool to go and get a good job, get a good salary, get all these good, put up good houses, travel the world. So that's the mindset that is created in people, not to create wealth, not to be, education should be enriching, should be empowering. That even if you don't get a job, you will be creative enough to be useful to your country. But you find that if you go to all of the universities we are having in Uganda, you find that the highest percentage of courses that are enrolled in, people are doing management, computer science, laws, because those are the courses that people would immediately go and get what? The job, and get a good salary. So we are losing something here. And we are now planting corruption in the system. You see? So, unless we go back and on the drawing board and look at our education system, that we are not only going to produce for the labor market, because the labor market changes, but we are building a capacity for the country that will stand the test of time. Then you can talk of people thinking that even if I don't get a government job, even if I don't get an NGO job, I will be creative enough on myself and I'll be useful to my country.
Good, thank you very much. As I bring in Moses members, we towards winding up, we are running out of time. But those are interesting views. And Moses, quite different views, but they end up agreeing the same. Robert is emphasizing patriotism, saying, look, as long as the spirit of patriotism is low, we shall have people do whatever they do and corruption will continue. Moses is, Tony is strongly saying the law is not strong enough. The law has some bit of loopholes, and he has also mentioned before the issue of courage. He's saying there is no courage in the society to tackle this issue heads on. And yet you have given us your view that seriously the government has tried to show courage, has tried to, and he has a strong will to stamp out corruption. Now, my question here in closing remarks, and I'll direct it to you, because the two gentlemen here, the way they're arguing it, they don't seem to implicate the government that it has failed. But it's the people of Uganda who have failed to fight corruption. What will the government do to help the people of Uganda to fight corruption?
What the government can do at this moment is to keep on causing awareness within the community, because one of the loopholes today, as we speak, is the parliament of the day. You know, corruption has entered parliament.
Yep.
The people who are supposed to make changes in the laws are corrupt themselves in one way or another. You can see how those committees are performing now. All committees fighting corruption are headed by people from the opposition. One would keep on wondering why corruption is still going on. Why don't they? For example, there was an amendment which was brought by government from the executive about 2 years ago, that apart from prosecuting and punishing the person who has taken government money, measures should be made to confiscate his wealth back to the government coffers. That law is not going through because the MPs, they are not serious. They are not serious. They're serious of passing the law. You see? So we need to look at the parliament with at least an open eye as we speak. Two, I don't want to agree with Mr. Robert that poverty here is linked to corruption.
No.
The people who are engaged in corruption are too
Mr.
rich.
Chairman, I didn't agree with that.
You disagree. But you can give a mention.
Yes, the people who are engaged in corruption are too rich even to consume whatever they have on their plate.
Yeah, but just to pause you there, Tony just brought it idea to stop looking at corruption at a high profile level, but also to come back down. We have the UPE, Universal Primary Education, where thousands and thousands of teachers are being paid from the Ugandan government to go and teach in UPE schools.
Can I give you...
Those teachers, some of them are not teaching in these schools. And that's also a level of corruption. So, that's where the poverty thing came in, because people are so greedy that what they have is not enough for them. They want to get more and more.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, can I give you a funny story here?
Just quick I was
working for government. One of the reasons why I left government, the people themselves were laughing at me. That you look, the people you're working with, they're all driving big cars, putting up mansions, but what are they doing? I was challenged. And I said, no, I have to leave this government and go and look for my own way of living. Because the society themselves, when a child starts working, within 1 year, he buys a car, he builds a house, he marries 2 wives, then say that Tone's son is very clever. When yours goes to start the same job, being patient, starts working courageously and patriotically, they say that son is stupid because he can't accumulate wealth within a very short period. So society also must change its attitude towards the struggle against corruption.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, members. We shall wind up on this topic. Any closing remarks, Robert?
My point from the start is to go back to patriotism.
Yeah.
Finished.
Tony, any closing remarks from you?
My remark is corruption is bigger than anybody.
Good.
But we need to come together as a nation to fight it. And when you're talking of corruption in the NRM government, people usually say the president.
Yep.
The president is just one person. He needs to have a team of people whom he can together, who are very courageous to fight corruption. And unless he picks those people and assembles them for the job, corruption will swallow the country.
Continue. And very good. Mose, your closing remarks.
For me, my closing remarks is that dictatorship is more stronger than corruption.